Welcome to the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast, hosted by your favourite duo, Stephen and Charlene. They're here to help you transform your mindset and create a positive outlook on life. Are you tired of feeling stuck and unfulfilled? Are you ready to take control of your thoughts and emotions and rewrite your story? Well, you're in the right place. They will be sharing inspiring stories, practical tips, and expert advice to help you on your journey to a better you. You'll learn how to let go of negative self-talk, embrace your strengths, and focus on the good things in life. Each episode will be joined by amazing guests who have rewritten their own life stories and are now living their best lives. From successful entrepreneurs to accomplished athletes, we'll bring you stories of resilience, courage, and triumph. So grab a cup of coffee, get cozy, and get ready to be inspired. Tune in every week for a new episode of the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Let's rewrite our stories together and make every day count.
In today's episode, Margaret Skagias is a qualified social worker and public health graduate who founded registered charity Caring Kids in 2014 to address the practical support needs of young carers. With over 20 years' experience working across government and non-government sectors within Australia and overseas, Margaret has delivered and coordinated individual, group, and community-based programs for children, youth, and adults. Join us as we dive in.
Before we get started, we want to remind you that the information presented in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and their guests are their own and do not represent the views of any organisation or entity. Additionally, any information presented should not be taken as legal, medical, or financial advice. Always consult with a licensed professional in the respective field for any advice or guidance. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic and learn how to transform our lives through positive thinking and taking control of our stories. Thanks for joining us.
Before we begin, we want to give you a heads up. We may be discussing some sensitive and personal topics that might bring up some strong emotions or discomfort. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive space, but we know that everyone's experiences and triggers are different. If you start feeling overwhelmed or triggered during an episode, remember to prioritize your well-being. It's totally okay to hit pause and take a breath. Your self-care is important, and looking after your mental and emotional health should always come first. If you ever need extra support, we encourage you to reach out to a mental health professional or someone you trust. You're not alone, and there are resources available to help you on your personal journey. Thank you for joining us on this incredible ride with the Rewrite Your Life Story podcast. Together we'll navigate life's challenges and rewrite our narratives with strength and resilience.
Hey everyone, it's Stephen and Charlene from Rewrite Your Life Story, and today we've got Margaret Skagias, the founder of a not-for-profit organisation called Caring Kids that actually operates throughout all of Australia. And I'm really excited to get into Margaret's story. So Margaret, first of all, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Now, Margaret, you founded a charity, which is not an easy thing of its own. And we'll get a bit into that, but just tell us a bit about your background, how you got into this, what was your career before you found the need to start this charity?
Well, I'm a qualified social worker, so I did complete a social work qualification. And then sometime after that, I decided I wanted to do some more study, and I studied public health. So for me, there's obviously just been a draw. Something that has been meaningful for me is supporting other people, but also what the impact of perhaps an illness, disability, health condition, what the impact of that can be for an individual, but also for their family as well. And I just have seemed to come back to this common theme again and again in the work that I pursue. And I guess that in some way, what led me to found Caring Kids. I don't know if you want to hear a little bit about perhaps a work experience or that led me to that. Well, Caring Kids is an organisation that I founded to support young carers. That is children who are providing unpaid care to a friend. So Caring Kids is an organisation that provides support to young carers, and young carers are children who provide unpaid care to a family member that has a chronic illness or a disability. And when I say unpaid care, we usually just say that just to distinguish. When you say carer, a lot of people are thinking about somebody who comes into the home under a contract or an arrangement. We're talking about children caring for their brothers and sisters, children caring for their mum or their dad. It could be a physical disability. It could be a mental health issue. It could be a developmental issue. So it varies very much from family to family. But the common theme is that young people demonstrate a lot of care, a lot of compassion, and usually put, say, it's their brother or sister first. And that might be before they play with their friends, before they do their homework, before they socialise. Young people recognise perhaps that their sibling can or cannot do some things that maybe other children can do, and they step in to provide whatever support they can provide with all the love and the care that they do. And that was something that I learned a lot about when I was working at an organisation that promoted and advocated for carers. And I was also responsible for running respite camps for young carers so they could go away from home, have a bit of a break, have some fun, but more importantly, also meet other children who were also providing care to a family member. And just seeing children flourish, I mean, it's the same with all of us. When we meet someone who's gone through something that we've gone through, you always feel that sort of, oh, wow, it's not just me. And it's just that I really enjoyed seeing children make those connections, and it just always stayed with me. I always just wanted to do something more and recognise children that so many people may forget about, not intentionally, but as children, you don't normally have a voice. You're just at home doing what you do. And so I like being able to make a bit of noise for young carers and to get people to think about them. And that's sort of what led me to want to establish a charity that supports children caring for others.
Yeah, awesome. I guess for me, I've never really considered children as carers. And I can see why, because you're right. Usually refer to carers as either a paid relative that's receiving some subsidy from the government, or an adult, or someone's on the NDIS or on an aged care package. But yeah, there's this forgotten gap of children. How big is this issue in Australia?
So we could say 2 to 3 young carers in every classroom. And that could equate to, some of the figures are about 235,000 children, young carers across Australia, although there's a consensus that those figures are low because of the underreporting of 4 children. So it does get captured a bit in the census, but that depends how old you are. And so the current figures estimate approximately 2 to 3 young carers in every classroom. So if you picture that across the whole of Australia, that's quite a vast number of children. But even in another way, if you're thinking sort of even about the street that you live on, in every second house or third house, there's somebody who's requiring care due to a health condition. So it's far more, let's say, common, and it's usually just hidden in the background and not something that everybody sort of thinks about in the every given day. So I do think about it quite a lot because it's my passion. But generally, too, you were saying, you just touched on there that, yes, some people do receive a benefit or a payment as family members. As children get older, if they're eligible for, a carer payment or a carer allowance, and that's there to sort of subsidise, perhaps support children who therefore, as they're getting older, might not be able to get a part-time job because they have caring responsibilities, or even when they're over 18, they decide to become, or they naturally become the full-time carer of their parent, for example. There are some payments available to people and young adults in those situations as well. But for the very young ones, so even if you're thinking about the 4 to 12-year-olds, that's not really something that's an option. And many people say, well, why would you think a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or why would you consider that a carer? That doesn't really make a lot of sense because they're little. And what we found is that siblings of children with disabilities, they've been there either from the beginning, so they were born and then they had a sibling who already had a disability, or they're the eldest and then a sibling has either suffered a medical episode or been diagnosed. And in your family, it's very close together. Everything that your sibling experiences, you will understand and will impact also on you. So for children even as young as 5 will know how to communicate, perhaps with a sibling who hasn't got the same language skills. They will know their likes and dislikes. If respite workers come to the home, they'll say, no, they don't like to eat that. No, that's not their favourite toy. In many ways, they are their strongest advocate and their protector. And that starts from a very young age. And for some young carers, they don't remember anything different or any other experience in their family.
Very interesting. Very beautiful that you have that service. And I'm also wondering, Margaret, when like you're talking about, they have camps, respite camps for the caring kids. And what happens for them when they go there? Is there like a sense of guilt that they're leaving their family behind that they usually care for?
Well, so in the time that I was coordinating those camps, there was a range of different things, and they are still operated now by some other services. And for some young carers, I think, who are able to express it, because obviously when the younger you are, it can be really difficult to put how you're feeling into words or to know. I know in my experience where there were some older young carers, so we're talking teens, who had taken on significant responsibilities, perhaps for a sibling in one instance who was a lot younger but was very much in and out of hospital all the time. And some of the symptoms that they were having could be quite life-threatening. So there was a high-stress environment, and that young carer felt very strange being away from home and just very nervous. That is actually something that does happen. So even for young carers who might want to go to school or be at school and the person they care for is at home, they can be thinking during the day, how are they doing? Can I check in on them? So some young carers are permitted, if their school knows and they're supportive, to keep their phone with them during the day and also check on the person at home. So so although it's lovely to have a break and have respite, it's definitely not always easy to step away when you're so connected to that person and you just want to make sure that they're being taken care of and that they're okay. And probably all carers, whether they're children or even whether they're adults, will struggle with that exact same thing all the time.
Margaret, what are the long-term psychological effects of these children? Now, I know not every child's going to have some sort of effect, but is there any studies around that?
So often people will, in my experience, talking to young carers and hearing their stories and also speaking to parents of young carers, and why I suppose that there have been some services that have since evolved for young carers is because if young carers don't experience support and if they feel perhaps that they are a bit isolated, maybe because they've had to stay at home a bit more than what their friends and not being able to get out, could also be the impact on school. So, for example, if there is a lot of caring responsibilities at home and that is weighing heavily on the young person, so they could be having to do a lot of household tasks, take responsibility for financial matters, make sure that the washing has been done, doing the cooking. That can impact on education and performance at school. And that can have sort of the long-term impacts on future career pathways in education and also employment. And I want to clarify that this isn't in all cases of young carers. It will depend very much on the nature of the person that they're caring for, what their issue is, and how is the caring load. Is it mild? Is it moderate? Is it high? How many hours a week it is? And so not all young carers will experience impact on their education and future employment. Some will, and also mental health. So if, for example, you, as I said, it's difficult to socialise with friends or perhaps have the freedom to do what you may have otherwise been able to do, that can weigh on some young carers. They can find that psychologically very challenging. But to sort of give you the flip side of the challenges, because we always sort of start off with those, I have to really talk about all the benefits, or not the benefits, but perhaps what have I come to understand when I meet young carers, when you're lucky enough, because I have to say the compassion and the care and the love that is there between the young person and the person that they care for is just such a privilege to be able to hear those stories. But those skills that young people develop, and if you want to call them skills from their life experience, is the maturity, the compassion, the ability to empathize, and to think about what it's like for somebody else who's in a really difficult situation that you perhaps have already been in. So many young carers do grow up before their time, taking on adult responsibilities and having maybe the anxiety or the worry about someone in their family who has a health condition. However, that translates to children, and many of the children that grew up have actually gone on to decide they want to dedicate their lives to supporting other people who are impacted by illness and disability because they really understand that. So there is a flip side to it. There are definitely some challenges, but then there are also some of the growth that these young people do is just, it's really phenomenal. And yeah, so my experiences of meeting lots of young people in this situation and hearing their stories and how they're approaching their life moving forward was truly really mind-blowing for me.
What made you, so you're obviously working with young carers, did you see a gap in the system that wanted you to start your own charity, not-for-profit?
So I think at the time when I was originally working with young carers, there were fewer support services available. So things have changed. Obviously, everyone will say that there's always more to be done, of course. But at that time, it really wasn't something that many people were thinking about at all. And that really, at the time, I just used to think, wow, where could I refer this person to for this? And then I'd have a look and there really wasn't anyone for me to call. Like there was a limited amount of things, but was there anything in someone's local area? And as someone who's a social worker, that's just one thing that's always really challenging because one of the roles you have is to try to connect people when they have a need or to something or someone where they might feel they can get support. And I just really felt that there was an absence and a recognition in Australia of that issue. There were definitely people trying to make a loud noise and do things 100%. And I worked with a lot of those great people. And then since that time, as I said, more things have popped up. But perhaps like about 10 years ago, I sort of thought, well, this has always still really moved me, children who are taking on these responsibilities. What could I do? And I just thought, well, it would be great if there was a charity that perhaps could help kids in the home who need an extra pair of hands because they're caring and stuff that they can't do. So initially when I set up Caring Kids, we thought that we might be going into children's homes and helping them do some practical things that kids find hard to do when someone in the family who's the adult might have a health condition. And that was what we thought. But when you start a charity, sometimes what you think and then how it evolves over time. And we're just the perfect example of that because I probably didn't mention that what Caring Kids does is we send joy boxes packed with toys, games, books, puzzles, school stationery, and we pack them as full as we can and we deliver them to the doorstep of children who are caring across Australia. So inside the box is a whole heap of different things that we hope that children, and they tell us that they really enjoy, especially sports equipment, so you can get outside and have a run around, school stationery. But we also find because young carers really can't get out because they're kids, they can't just maybe hop in a car or do perhaps what an adult can do. We needed to be able to get to them. And so we try to do that. We use a courier network and we're able to reach children whether they live in the city, whether they live in a town, and also sometimes children where there's nothing else around, but in that one moment they can open their front door and they can know that what they're doing is remarkable and that they've been noticed.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
I can imagine that would just really instill hope in those children that this is worthwhile doing.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of young carers, they've said, look, I just felt like nobody noticed me. So sometimes, not for any reason in particular, but when there's a lot going on, perhaps with a sibling or another parent, it can be quite a lot going on. There can be hospital visits, medical appointments, therapy appointments, and it's a constant cycle of treatment and care. And sometimes young carers feel lost within that and perhaps that they weren't seen and they were forgotten, and that feels hurtful to them. And it's not intentional, it's just circumstances. And so just for one moment in time, we think it's really important for young carers to know they were seen. And we know that we're strangers to them. We are a group of people that are located probably very far away from where they are. But we definitely put the time and the care, and I know certainly my volunteers do, into trying to make every box as special as we can and fill it up with as much fun as we can, and to show young carers that, they can still be kids and have a bit of fun because they're taking on a lot of responsibilities, but just an opportunity to think, you know what, I can go and have a bit of a play myself and I can be a kid. Even I know for those of us who are adults, we like to enjoy ourselves and have fun. And sometimes we just want the kids to be able to have that experience when they open up a box. So, and hopefully a few puzzles to do to keep them busy during the school holidays, or some colouring in to do. And we get some good feedback from the parents of the children. Sometimes children, obviously, it's hard when you're little. They're not going to whip out and do an email for us. But we get lots of photos from the parents, and sometimes we get cards and letters from the kids, and that's always lovely as well. I wonder some years from now if any of the kids and that might think back and go, oh gosh, somebody remembered me then, and what that might mean for them, maybe remembering someone or doing something kind for someone in the future.
That's beautiful. Margaret, on average, how many boxes would you distribute each year?
Yeah, so last year we had our biggest year. And so I know we've all been impacted by COVID, and it's hard to even believe that you could try and get through a whole podcast episode without saying it, but there goes, I've done it now. But we had our biggest year last year. We shipped out 500 boxes, and our boxes have about 30 items each. So it's about 15,000 items. So you could say that, so 500 children across Australia received a Joy Box last year.
And how are these children referred to? Like, how do you find out about them?
Yeah, so we're very fortunate. We work with our charity partner, and their name is Little Dreamers, and they provide the ongoing support, camps and referral for young people who are in a caring role. So they're able to identify who are the young carers, who they're caring for, what their interests might be, and they're able to order them directly from us. So at the moment, that for us has been amazing, because we have been able to send boxes to children who live in all parts of Australia. And also they're able to identify which child would like to have one. So that partnership has been going for 3 to 4 years, I think now. And that's how we find is the best way, if you partner with another organisation, to be able to work together and also be able to support through partnerships of any kind. You can always reach more children, and that's been our goal. So it's so pleasing to know that we were able to support as many children as we did last year, because different charities, we're different sizes. So we're not a very big charity. We're a local charity. We have local volunteers and local businesses supporting us. So receiving all the donations and processing the donations that we put into our Joy Boxes at our toy workshop. These are all sort of things that we're involved in. And we also have a partnership with Lions Australia, which is Australia's largest service organisation. And that's been incredible. So also just this year, Lions nationally are supporting caring kids. And what that has meant is we've connected with people who are in clubs literally all over Australia. My geography has skills and knowledge has taken a real increase up direction when I'm having people calling me and I'm having a quick look at which town, and they're all calling saying, how can we help you? What can we do to help you give out more Joy Boxes? Are there any young carers in my area? How can I find out more? What more could I do for kids in my town or my suburb? So that's probably been one of the most wonderful things that's happened in this year, for example.
Charlene and I know very well the work of Lions, and very grateful for the Lions, because we've got a personal story of how the Lions have helped our family as well. And Charlene and I are no longer Lions because our life got so busy, and we actually resigned from Lions this year. Very well that they've partnered with Caring Kids. So we're happy to hear that.
Yeah, because they do support, obviously, being Lions, lots of different causes and lots of different aspects of it. There's over 20,000 volunteers in Lions doing incredible things. But one of the things with young carers is they're on every street. They're in every part of Australia, from the smallest town. Some of the clubs saying, and are there young carers living in mine? Absolutely there are, yes. Yes, of course. And then they think a little bit more about it and go, oh my goodness, why hadn't I thought about this before? And the ability to sort of want to come together and give a hand and help is just really, that speaks a lot to me, because I'm very passionate about being involved in your local community and giving service to other people and what that brings to your life, but also the common good that a big group of people who are all coming together to volunteer, or whether it's supporting people through when there were bushfires or whether there were floods, or just what the impact of your everyday person can actually achieve when they come together as a group. It can be very powerful. And that's what I feel is such a joy to me, trying to support kids who are carers, but then having the support of an organisation such as that to sort of give you the thumbs up and say, you know what, this is a good idea. We're going to push this along and we're going to help you. Yeah, that's more than what I could have ever hoped for.
Margaret, what have been some of the biggest challenges in you starting struggles in you starting this charity?
There may be, I'm sure there's people who are listening who might have started a charity themselves, or perhaps are thinking about it. A lot of people think about it. I have a lot of people come up and ask me questions exactly like the one that you just asked me. Because, a lot of people, and I don't know if you know this, but there's 56,000 charities in Australia.
Wow.
And we're just but one. And so some people will think, okay, I'm going to join a charity that's already open and go with that. And I suppose 10 years ago, I wasn't as aware as I was now. The longer you do something, the more you learn, don't you? And I suppose in many ways, I have done a lot of learning. I was not aware of what's involved behind the scenes. I've learned a lot about compliance, the rules, the regulations, all the very important things that you need to do so that people who support you know that whether they give you funds or whether they give you goods, that you're helping the people that need to be helped. So I've learned a tremendous amount about that, but also about having the ability to continue. Someone said to me once, it's easy to start something. The hard bit is keeping it going. And I thought, that's really interesting, because you can have a lot of ideas in the beginning about what you want to do. And then you need to be able to sort of be able to keep that moving forward consistently year upon year and evolving all the time to be able to either sustain what you're doing, to improve what you're doing, or even perhaps expand what you're doing. If you decide, okay, I want to help 1,000 children next year, if that was our goal, then we might have to sit and think, okay, well, how are we going to do that? So it's a constant process of sort of thinking forward and trying to find how you're going to get to the next step. So definitely for all of us, this is challenges when you're trying something new and you haven't done it before. So that can be very challenging, definitely. And also not knowing. You can't know what you don't know. So I just had to find ways of knowing. And I reach out to people, all sorts of different people, who, whether they've been a colleague, a friend, a family member, they're probably worried when they see my phone number, thinking, what does she want now? No, but I've just also definitely been so lucky. Some people have actually found me and said, what are you doing? I've heard about this. I want to give you a hand. What can I do? That really astounds me, that people who perhaps hadn't known about young carers, that it then moves them enough to want to do something too. So definitely a lot of learning, and also when opportunities that you think were going to work don't work, finding other ways. So I'm definitely, maybe that was a social work training, that you've always got to look for different ways to do things, and some things just don't work. So then just keep looking and do things a little bit differently and keep up the determination.
It sounds like you've done a lot of learning about the charity side of things and how things work through the whole process. And during this whole transformation of going from one place to another, getting into this whole charity, what did you learn about yourself? What was your self-discoveries during this time?
I think in particular in the last few years of founding Caring Kids and trying to establish all the systems and the processes that keep us going, I think I've just had to evolve a bit more and make more decisions, make them quickly, have confidence in the decisions I've made. That's not easy to do, and especially when they're bigger decisions and things that you haven't done before, but that's what's been required. So it's sort of keeping the vision of what I'd hoped to achieve there in the distance, and then continuously finding ways to get towards it. So probably what I've learned about myself is that I haven't given up easily. I don't know if that's called stubborn. I don't think so, maybe. But I think if you have something within you that you really want to do and that you really want to achieve, and if it's really important to you, you will continue when many doors might get closed or, to look for that window. But I've learned that I will continue and get to the end of what it is that I wanted to do. And it's always fun when sometimes things are not working out your way and you think, hang on. But then I've been determined to sort of keep going. That's sort of what I've learned the most over probably, well, there's many things, but that's one big thing I've learned the most, how to persist and not to give up.
Margaret, I know that when you start something you're absolutely passionate about, sometimes it can become all-consuming. How have you been able to balance your life, your family's life with this passion?
It's a good question. I think, look, again, as you said, like over the time, different things you learn. So sometimes when you've perhaps spent too much time or the balance has gone out, it becomes very obvious in both sides. So if, for example, there's too much time spent at work and not enough attention at home, or vice versa, it becomes obvious on either side that something needs to be done. And whether that's particularly for family and how to prioritize or how to manage your workload, because it's sometimes with all of us, especially if it's your own business, or maybe not, it's sort of like a how long is a piece of string thing. The more effort and time you put in, obviously you can have different achievements, but you're right, it is hard to learn how to balance those things. And there's been different times where I've realized it's gone too much one way and the other, absolutely. And then there have been changes that I've had to make. So there might have been some things that I was doing that was taking more time than perhaps was necessary or wasn't really giving me the result that I thought it was going to get. So I've had to actually stop doing whatever that was. And so there have been some difficult decisions I've had to make, perhaps a service that we were going to offer or something like that, where I've thought, you know what, this is actually taking a lot of time and maybe it would be better if I did this with my time to be more effective. So I've had to continuously modify and change what I've maybe done at Caring Kids to get the best outcome, but also to consider what the impact of that is for my own family. And I think for anyone that maybe is got something they're very passionate about, it sounds like you also might have that experience, just started finding that balance. It's not always, but you definitely know when it's gone out of whack. Yeah. The universe will let you know. And then it's time to make a change. And some of those hard ones, is saying no. So you might be asked to do something that could be conflicting in a time where there's an important family commitment. And it's realizing that if you don't set those boundaries, that in the end you won't be able to continue well in either. So I'll definitely say I have not perfected that on all occasions. And sometimes I'm just plain wrong. But then I do sit back and think, hang on, might need to make a bit of a change here. So yeah, it's definitely a moving feast and is always learning. But I'm very fortunate. Obviously, I have a very supportive family, and not just my family, but all my friends and wonderful people that I've worked with in the past who I can give a call if I need some help with something or if I'm stuck with something or something's not working. I'm definitely good with asking for help if I need it.
Yeah, and that's so important.
Yeah, it's so true. And on that topic, Margaret, who would you say have been your biggest mentors throughout this whole process? Because obviously you need someone to go to for help and to seek that out, and you're good at that.
Yeah. I think sometimes I've sought out mentors, whether it be on a certain topic or area that I've wanted to learn more about, something I don't know anything about. And I've sought mentors that I have great respect and admiration for, whether that's because of their knowledge, but also because of how they've used that within the work environment to even sometimes grow other people in their team. And so I have definitely reached out to people where there's certain things I've needed to extend myself a little bit more with in terms of different aspects of the charity. And there are also other people who've joined the charity at different times to give their support and their advice. And they have also been amazing mentors as well. So it's just truly incredible. There are people who are willing to let you achieve what it is that is really important to you and to guide you through that and to enjoy seeing your success at the end. That is a real gift. And I've been very lucky that there's been people who've been willing to do that for me. And I realise that that's a gift. And then I've had experiences where I've accidentally found mentors or they accidentally found me. And so more recently, there's a mentor within the Lions Network who's been a Lion for 35 plus years. If he ends up listening to this, I think he'll be very chuffed to hear. But he was somebody who saw what I was doing and thought of the benefits of it and then decided to bring in different people to help and support in a really altruistic way. And so mentoring is a very important, and I'd definitely recommend finding someone that you really admire and respect to get their advice and their support. It really is, for me, one of the most amazing things.
Margaret, as a charity, do you have a board of directors as part of your governance?
Yeah, well, it's funny that you just touch on that now because that's what I was thinking about. We do. So all registered charities must have board of directors who in some ways sort of they sail the ship, but I think one way they describe it is that, the chair of the board is always looking out on the horizon. And whether you're the CEO, you're definitely in the ship, but you have a board of people who are also there looking at different opportunities, helping you navigate the seas. And I've been very fortunate to have a very supportive board who've really gone above and beyond. I don't know whether all board roles are voluntary. That's one thing I'm not really sure of. I think in bigger charities, perhaps they're not, depending on the level of complexity. But we certainly, with Caring Kids over almost the last 10 years, have had a voluntary board who give their time and expertise and experience because they too have a passion for the cause and they also want to impact positively on other people's lives. And so, yes, I've been very fortunate. We do have some great board directors and no charity can exist without a supportive board.
Thank you so much for sharing, because I'm actually a volunteer on a board for a charity as well. And the way you described that was just so refreshing to hear. Okay, that's my purpose. Sometimes I'm like,
what am I doing here?
What am I doing here? But, you've really brought clarity to my role as a board member for a community service organisation. Thank you so much for sharing.
And to you for being on the board, because with anything that you choose to do with your time and volunteer your time and what you decide to give, but the stability that a board can provide, especially for the CEO, and then what that then in turn does for the staff. And the final result, of course, the most important is the people that you're trying to support. So all of that comes together. And the more effectively all that works, the better outcome there is for the staff and also for the people that you want to support. So I definitely have done a lot of learning about that because that was all very new to me. When you're in a social work field or a public health field, you're usually doing direct service delivery and working with people or communities or groups. You are not necessarily on the board, and that is a different role altogether. And originally at Caring Kids, I was a board director when I first founded Caring Kids, and that's very common in very small charities when they begin. However, I'm no longer a board director. So I'm guided by and overseen by our board, and they're able to support me with what I do.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Margaret, what is the immediate need and how can people get involved with Caring Kids?
So if you've been listening to this podcast and you're thinking about children who provide care and support to their brothers and sisters or their parents, and you're thinking, okay, well, what could I do? We encourage you to just hop onto our website, which is at www.caringkids.org.au. You may want to provide a joy box to a child. So if you hit the donate button, it will let you know how you can do that. And you can send that recognition, that act of kindness to a child anywhere across Australia. Our volunteers will pack that up and our courier partner will make sure it gets right to the doorstep. So if you're able to support us, as I said last year, we were able to support 500 children. And we know that there's thousands more out there. And we do all of this with the support and the generosity of the public. Sometimes people wonder, are we tax deductible charity? So it's really important to know that we are. It's really important that you get a receipt because when you choose to give, it's important that you also receive that. So we ask you to go to our website and give us support. Have a look at the children who receive the boxes. We have some really nice photos and some testimonials from kids and about what it's meant for them. And perhaps you might have a product or something like that you might think, you know what, I might like to give Caring Kids a few of these to share with the kids. So please reach out to us. There's a contact form on our website and you can talk to us. And Christmas, well, a lot of people like to give toys at Christmas. Now, we make Christmas all year round. If you have a workplace and you're thinking, hey, might want to do something this year for a charity, well, you can also host an online toy drive anywhere in Australia, and the toy company will ship the toys directly to us and we'll get them all out to the kids. So it doesn't matter where you live. Like I said, young carers live everywhere. If you want to support us, we can support the young carers.
I love that idea of an online toy drive.
So good.
That is such a simple way to make a huge difference and a fun way as well.
Yeah. So on the online toy drive site, there's like over 10,000 toys that you can choose from, and a leading toy store coordinates all of that. And then when we're ready, we let them know and they bring all the toys to us. And that's always a lot of fun, as you can imagine, for all our volunteers. We all must be big kids at heart. We definitely enjoy that experience as well. So there's many different ways that you can help us. And especially even also thinking about carers in your community. Perhaps you know a friend, family member who might be a carer, and it make you think a little bit more about their experience and provide support to them if you can.
Thank you so much.
That's really beautiful. So, Margaret, we usually have two really great questions at the end. And the first one is, what advice would you give to someone who wanted to rewrite their life story?
You're in charge of your own destiny. So grab that steering wheel and just do it. There'll be many obstacles that are going to come in your way, that's for sure. And you'll find different ways to either get through them or change your path and adjust yourself a little bit. I really feel like everybody has the opportunity to find that one thing or the many things that they want to achieve in their life and just to grab it and just do it. And a lot of people say it's really hard, all these other things are sort of in my way. It doesn't have to be as dramatic or as starting a charity. I'm even talking, a goal could be, I just want to really get my herb garden up and at it. Whatever's going to give you that bit of satisfaction just for you, that's personal to you. It's not for anybody else to know about. It's just to let yourself do it and don't stand in your way.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's beautiful. Margaret, if you were to go back now and rewrite your life story, what would that look like?
Well, I did feel like now I've realised that I've had this opportunity and I've been very fortunate to be able to found a charity and to be able to do this for young carers. But I feel like it's a never-ending story and it's a constant process of transformation. So I've been able to achieve this and I've enjoyed every minute of it. Well, actually, not every minute of it. There has been those moments where you're thinking, hang on a minute, can I manage this or how will I meet this challenge? But what I have really enjoyed is the satisfaction of having a goal of something that was so important to me and seeing that come to fruition. That's just meant so much to me. But I realised that I've had many different goals in my life and some of them have seemed completely unattainable and maybe some fell by the wayside. But there'll be many different things that I want to do. I feel like I've got more that I want to contribute and more goals that I want to set for myself in the future. So there'll be another story. There'll be many other stories, but I'm grateful that you were able to hear this one.
Thank you so much. It's been it's been a pleasure, and you've really changed the way I look at carers in such a positive way. So thank you, Margaret, for what you do for these young children and these young adults that are in need of a bit of love, bit of care and recognition. So thank you so much. And if you want to reach out to Caring Kids, all the links will be in the show notes. And please run a toy drive or donate a box to one of these kids who need a bit of recognition for everything they do. Once again, Margaret, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Now that we've interviewed our guest, join Charlene and I as we recap today's episode. That for me was an eye-opener, I will say that, because I never thought of I might have a sibling with a disability because I'm looking out for them. And I guess when we were recapping with Margaret, she made a really good point that sometimes the child who is the carer is not actually a primary carer.
Yes.
But the thing is that in order for the charity to exist, they have to put a word to the role that they play. So even if they're looking out for their brothers or sister, and Margaret made a really good point as we'll close in after we stopped recording, that a lot of children that are carers or looking out for their siblings with a disability or whatever it may be actually become adult carers of the same siblings should the parents pass away.
That's right, lifelong carers.
Lifelong carers. And I love what she said, that a toy box isn't going to fix everything and a toy box isn't going to make the load easy, but it's going to say, we see you.
That's right. And that's a really beautiful way of being able to let that child know that, yes, what I'm doing is worthwhile, that I'm not the only person here, that I'm not in it all by myself. There's people out there that actually care.
Yeah, and I think that was really evident in what she does. And I guess I'm a bit, not shell-shocked, but I guess I never realised how many children, like 3 in every class or 1 in every second home, is a carer in some sort of fashion. That's quite a lot.
I know. It's so mind-blowing to think how many children out there that are looking after some member of the family, and with so much compassion and understanding that's beyond their years.
Yeah, and she put it beautifully. It's actually, there are good stories. They're more resilient. They're more mature beyond their years. They're more compassionate. They usually go into some sort of community work or care role in their adult life because of the experience that this has brought. So Margaret certainly is making a difference in people's lives.
So thanks, Margaret.
Thank you for listening to our podcast today. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and share it with your friends and family. Also, make sure to visit our website at www.rewriteyourlifestory.com.au to learn more about our mission, products and services. And remember, you have the power to rewrite your own life story. So go out there, face your challenges head on and create the life you've always wanted. We'll see you in the next episode.